Hey, everybody. Welcome to another glorious episode of Jeff Has Cool Friends. My name's Jeff May. I have cool friends. Some of these cool friends you've never met, and I want to introduce you to. Some of these cool friends you may have met before, and I want to talk a little bit more in depth. And that is one of the people that I am bringing on here. This was one of my later guests on the previous iteration of this show that was previously through Sideshow Collectibles. We went on and talked about his show that he had on Sideshow Collectibles that also got canceled. And he's also one of the most amazing and talented and kind and buff people I have ever met in my life. He's just one of my best buds. Give it up for Joshy G, Josh Gallegos. Josh, how you doing, bud?
A Baba Booey to each and every one of you out there in Podcastville land world.
You Baba Booing right now, bro?
I Baba Booeyed you, my friend.
Josh, we met at Sideshow. We were the fill-ins. We were the new hosts, and boy, did the people hate us.
Yeah, I didn't understand why.
Do you not understand why?
I mean, look, there's tons of theories, just like there's theories about everything in the world of pop culture and in the world of news. I was a little taken back because I remember my very first Comic-Con experience and people being so welcoming and so loving and so kind. And it didn't matter if you were short, tall, small, big, large, buff, skinny, whatever. They embraced you. And I was really pumped and looking forward to coming into a community, right? Because they come from the CrossFit community where it's very similar. And, I was a little taken back at the sometimes visceral responses, whether it be to you or to me or other male
or Brad
co-hosts. Yeah, poor Brad.
Brad Gate,
but we, I think, made the best of that situation. And I, even to this day, miss the days of you, me, Wendy, Brad, Amy, thank you. We did a great job. And I think one of my favorite shows was I think it was a Thanksgiving show that we did, or maybe it was a Christmas. It was a holiday special.
Thanksgiving or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Where we sat around and we had sweaters and we were hawking stuff for them, but it just seemed
in the
very
desert,
family.
In 120-degree desert.
But
ooh, it was so cold.
It was super fun. And, obviously some of the crew members were great too. So,
yeah.
Obviously a little bummed that that's still not working out, but I made some really good friends there, and
yeah, it was definitely interesting. I knew going in. It's funny because I think I was just a little bit more online than you to know how this was going to go. I was a little bit more connected to that previous Sideshow run because I was working for them back when Susan was their host, and a lot of guys were like, "That's my secret internet girlfriend. I love her." And then they got rid of her and they replaced him with us. And we are the opposite of that. We kind of look like the guys that took that girlfriend away from them. And so they really didn't like us. We won some over because I think we were pretty charming and pretty good at what we do. But we just weren't, they liked what they liked. They liked Mom's Meatloaf. And this new one is different to them. And so I tried not to take it personally. But it's hard when they're commenting on you as a person.
Look, I get it. I mean, I was in some way this very same when Bobby the Brain Heenan and Mean Gene Okerlund went over to WCW, and I was stuck with Todd Pettengill and Jim Ross. I was like, who are these jabronis? Give me back Mean Gene. Give me back Bobby Heenan. So to a certain extent, I understand where they were coming from.
I like how you jumped into wrestling.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to think of, I'm like, okay, what did I was upset
what
about?
What analogy do I have? Yeah, you are such an important wrestling adjacent human being. Like you have become this sort of like buddy and trainer to the stars in a way.
Yeah.
With the WWE, where you have Dead Boys Fitness, which is awesome, and which I have worked out with. I get a lot of my listeners were like, Seth Rollins. I was like, well, no is a kind offer, but yeah, I've worked out with him. He was really great, and Rebecca Lynch, and you're good buddies with like Sheamus, and all these people because you've been around them. How is that for you as somebody who grew up being a wrestling fan?
Well, it's funny. Growing up as a wrestling fan, I never thought in my wildest dreams I would ever work with wrestlers or even get a paycheck from the WWE. And then after leaving Las Vegas and coming to LA to work on movies and TV shows, I never thought that those avenues would ever intersect,
Mhm.
And one of my very first jobs as a PA, I worked on the set of this really great movie. It's called Looney Tunes Back in Action, starring Oscar Award winner Brendan Fraser,
Directed by.
Joe Dante, which I have so many great stories from that set alone. But
He got that because of Gremlins too, by the way.
yeah, and we can go into that, but basically, long story short, when it comes to the wrestling portion of that, one of the co-stars on that movie was Bill Goldberg, who, if you don't know, was a big time WCW wrestler, and I was a big time WCW hater. And so I just was like, of course, I'm on a movie with Bill Goldberg, but I just noticed that nobody knew who he was. Nobody was just kind of talking to him. And I was
Because
like,
he
all
was like
right,
a big gimmick at the time. He was
yeah,
had that the streak and this, while he wasn't known for being the most technically sound wrestler, he certainly was big. He was over in a huge
yeah,
way.
very popular. And so I made it a point to go over and talk to him, and we eventually became buddies. And that was my introduction into being friends with wrestlers.
It was Goldberg was the introduction.
I became best friends with Bill Goldberg. And so I ended up working for him, and then we worked on The Longest Yard and yada yada yada. That was my very first
Just yada yada
introduction.
yada. What did you do on The Longest Yard? Were you a PA?
I was Goldberg's assistant. So we were on The Longest Yard, and there were other wrestlers on The Longest Yard. So Steve Austin, Kevin Nash
They
were
were
the
playing
big ones.
racists.
Yes, they were. They were playing the prison guards.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was just fun to be around, some of these big time wrestlers that I grew up watching, especially in the late or mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
And even though I wasn't a big Goldberg fan, I ended up being a big fan. And in my after I got done working for Bill, I'm kind of going back and forth. But after I got done working for
Okay.
Bill, I worked on another movie called The Rundown, and that one starred a young Dwayne Johnson.
I love The Rundown.
And that's how I was introduced to The Rock. And I was a PA, and he's pretty friendly to most of the PAs. And so I was like, oh yeah, I know Bill Goldberg. And he just kind of was like, yeah, sure, kid. Yeah, okay. And so one day, I think Goldberg was coming back from New Japan Pro Wrestling. He did some independent because WWE at that time bought WCW.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, hey kid, I'm at LAX. So because he knew I lived in LA. And I was like, oh, I'm actually on this movie set with The Rock. You should come by. Not thinking about it. He's like, oh, I'm going to come by and kick his ass. And I was like, sure, pal. And he came by, and he got out of his limo.
Kicked his ass.
Well, he got out of his limo, and he was like, Rock, and just like yelled at him. And I was like, oh no, these guys are really going to go at it. And they ended up talking, and that was how they called Vince, and that's how Goldberg and Dwayne worked with each other in WWE.
So you were the glue, you were the peanut butter of that sandwich?
I guess so. Yeah, sure. I was the guy that kind of was like, hey, you guys should meet and do some business together.
You're like wrestling Forrest Gump.
Kind of, exactly. That is a great analogy. Yes, I was wrestling Forrest Gump.
You were at the worst WrestleMania, right?
I don't recall it being the worst WrestleMania, but yes,
to a lot of WrestleMania 9, right?
I was at WrestleMania 9, which was in Caesar's Palace. God bless my mom and dad. They saved up all this money to get me and my brother at the time to go to WrestleMania 9. I think it was in this outdoor arena at Caesar's Palace, and we had the second to last seats. They were like the nosebleeds. But in that small arena,
in an open arena in the hottest place in the country too.
Yeah, and we were the second to last row. There were still pretty decent seats because I think that outdoor arena didn't hold very many folks, and I loved it. I loved Doink the Clown, the double doink. I loved the Narcissist. I loved the Giant Gonzalez in that terrible match with the Undertaker. I loved it all. And then the main event happens, and Yokozuna wins. And even though I liked Bret Hart, I was like, I'm fine with this. I'm totally fine with this. And then that piece of shit Hogan just comes walking out. And I just remember being like, please no. Because I was not a Hogan guy. I was a Macho Man guy through and through. And that guy came back and won the title.
With a busted eye.
Everyone's like cheering and so happy. And I'm just like grumpy cat. And my mom and my dad are like, Josh, what's wrong? And I'm like, why does Hogan win all the time? Like, I was just so angry.
Because your parents couldn't be like, politics, because it's fake. They can't say that.
Yeah, they're like,
yeah,
oh, he
be all
doesn't think
political.
Yokozuna can have a run, so he needs to take the title back. But yeah, no, it was a great WrestleMania for a lot of memories until the very last, I think, 3 or 4 minutes. That's when I was checked out. But no, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it is. I recently watched I have, and I don't hide this. I'm pretty wrestling ignorant. Like, I don't know a lot about modern wrestling. I know
Mm-hmm.
people's names and I've learned them, but I actually love learning about wrestling. Like, I love wrestling documentaries, and I have discovered a podcast that has been putting out videos on YouTube called Wrestle Me. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with them at all?
No,
They're
I'm
two
not.
British guys, like best buds. I know one's a comedy writer. I think the other one is related in that regard to comedy, but they comment on American wrestling, and it's like all sorts of stuff, new stuff, old stuff, whatever. And they're so funny. And I'm like watching this thing, laughing my ass off. And they do like 4 videos on WrestleMania 9. Like, the episode is broken into 4, and I've watched it several times and laughed. And it's the first time I've ever felt like, like, I'll get a lot of fans that are like, I'm on my 3rd listen through of Tom and Jeff Watch Batman or something like that. And I'm like, why? You already heard the episodes. And this is
Yeah.
the first one. And they do their WrestleMania 9 takedown. I'll message it to you. It's not every day I promote a different person's podcast on my show that isn't a guest, but I've been having so much fun with the Wrestle Me guys listening to their stuff, and they eviscerated WrestleMania 9.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, as a kid or a 13-year-old Josh going to the show, like you have a lot of maybe
Huge.
more nostalgic memories than you do actual matches. But when you go back and watch, at least the first 2 matches are pretty solid. Shawn Michaels and Tatanka and the Steiners and the Head Shrinkers, they're pretty solid. Maybe not the Steiners and Head Shrinkers. Maybe I'm just thinking of Tatanka and Shawn Michaels, but
Really,
it
you're
was
probably
still,
just thinking about Shawn Michaels in that case.
well, no, it was a good match. I'm because I don't want wrestling marks now to be like, actually, the Steiner brothers, that was a terrible match, one of the worst matches ever. But I
They're
just
not going
watched
to
it
do that
recently.
on here. My listeners aren't like that. They're
Well,
not.
they might.
They're not going to actually. Although they will now
But
that I said that.
go back and watch at least the first match and the double doinks, just for pure
Pure
Vince
double
McMahon
doink.
cinematic vision. Like, that was such a genius thing, in my opinion.
I could put anybody in here. It is wild because that is sort of the era too, where they were like, "Hey, we're falling down the toilet pretty hard. We got to fix this shit." And it's going
Well, it
to
was
take
great.
a
Like,
couple years to do that.
Doink was such a great idea, and then he screwed it up by making him a good guy. Like, the reason Doink worked is because he was an evil clown. He would come to the ring, give a kid a balloon, and then pop it, and the kid would start crying, and he would start laughing. Like, that's what
Yeah.
makes it great, you know?
That they just had that behind the ring or whatever, or like
Dark Side of the Ring,
Dark
yeah.
Side of the Ring, yeah, on him.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. That dude had it rough.
That was my first big WrestleMania, and then I went to WrestleMania 12 in Anaheim, where I saw the Iron Man match
Oh yeah,
between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. And
Yeah.
then I didn't go to, I mean, I went to like random pay-per-views here and there, especially if they were in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And then my next big WrestleMania was when I was working for Goldberg, WrestleMania 20, which some would say was the worst WrestleMania match of all time, between Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, which that wasn't fun to watch.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where I don't think anybody was happy with that one, huh?
Yeah. And then after that, it was when I became friends with Colby and Claudio and Becky and Sheamus and Bailey and all these guys, when I got invited to other WrestleManias. And so I've been on somewhat of a WrestleMania streak. I haven't been to all of them in the past 10 years, but I've been to most of them.
I have never been to a WrestleMania.
Oh, well, we got to fix that.
I know, of course, they were just in LA.
Yeah.
I have never been to a WrestleMania, but when I was a kid, I was like 8 or 9 years old, and there was like maybe a house show, or maybe like a Superstars taping or something that was in Boston. And we asked my dad, and my dad's one of those afraid of cities guys. And he's like, we're not going into Boston. It's an hour away.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, if the next time they come to either Worcester, Providence, or Hartford, we'll go. Those are manageable cities that I can get through. Within a week, we had him sign a contract, because my brother and I weren't stupid at the time. We were always trying to find loopholes. So we wrote a contract and had him sign it. Now, this is what we were 8 and 10, and we made a contract. Within a week or two of that contract being signed, they announced the Survivor Series was going to be at the Hartford Civic Center.
Is that the Undertaker one, right?
And we held that thing up in front of our dad's face, and we were like, "You promised, you promised." And he's like, and shout out to my dad, because he could have been like, "Not this, not on Thanksgiving." Like, come on, man. But instead, he was like, "All right, got us the tickets. We got merch." And that was the gosh darn gobbledygooker debut and the Undertaker debut.
Yeah.
I still have my ticket stub. And the way they ripped the stub, I didn't get the good part. So you can't tell.
No.
I still have it. Like, I'm sure you could like serial code it, but I still have that ticket stub. It's in good condition.
That was because when I got into wrestling, it was like SummerSlam 91 was my first wrestling.
Yeah.
Like I saw it as a kid, like Hogan and Andre and the Hot Rock and Hogan's wrestling cartoon.
Oh yeah.
But 91 SummerSlam is when I watched it, and then I went back and retconned it and watched all the pay-per-views after that because I was so obsessed. Yeah. And so watching that for the first time and being like, who is this guy? He's an Undertaker. He's dead. He puts people in body bags. This is so great. And
who was his feud with? Was that was Hogan, right? Was that the Gravest Challenge?
That was the next year. That was on my birthday. That was the first pay-per-view I made.
SummerSlam. Okay, you said SummerSlam 91. I was thinking
Survivor Series
91. That was the Gravest Challenge.
Yeah.
See, okay. For
SummerSlam 91, SummerSlam 91 was billed as the match made in heaven, where Macho Man and Elizabeth got married, and match made in hell, which was Hogan and Warrior versus Iraqi sympathizer Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa, i.e. Iron Sheik.
What a beating that was. Like, to put it into perspective, the most fit person there was a 50-something-year-old overweight Sergeant Slaughter. And he was of the villains. Like, that is to put Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, who were made of meat, who are just big stacks of meat-colored rocks, and to put them up against two kind of like very unhealthy looking older men. I remember, even as a kid, I would have been 9 at the time of that. I remember watching that being like, that doesn't seem fair at all. That just seems like the two strong men are going to beat all those old men together. That is,
I just love the hype between Hogan and Slaughter. I mean, you obviously couldn't do it now, but it just was so ridiculous. Like, you had Sergeant Slaughter, this good old-fashioned American hero. He was on G.I. Joe. And for some reason, I don't even remember how or why, but he became an Iraqi sympathizer. This is even before Photoshop. So they get like this guy that kind of looks like Saddam Hussein, and they get like, there's a photo. It's like Slaughter and Saddam, and they got their hands around each other, and
he got like death threats for that, and it was like a whole thing.
Yeah, it was insanity to look back at that and be like, man, Vince was just such a wild man to think that, like, and I mean, obviously it did work, they main evented WrestleMania and they main evented SummerSlam 91, but it was just such a,
to be fair, they main evented the lowest pay-per-view buys of any WrestleMania ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't
and
know
they
that.
had to move from the Coliseum to, I think it was like the Forum or something. They had to move venues to
it was the sports arena.
The
sports arena. And
it was because they, quote, received threats, but the reality was they just didn't sell enough tickets. Nobody cared.
Well, that's amazing. I like that. However they spin it, it was funny.
I look back at that and I go, did Hasbro approve this? Because like, when Sergeant Slaughter like loaned his likeness out to a main character in G.I. Joe, to have that character, even though G.I. Joe wasn't particularly popular in 1991, it still was a brand that you kind of have to be like, should Hasbro be like, you are going to cost us a lot of money if you do this?
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea. And even so, I think these older school wrestler mentalities where they'd be like, well, I'm just going to do it anyway. They didn't even
yeah, but someone like but you got to figure like Slaughter or like someone like Jesse Ventura that have at least a working understanding of like merchandising and Hollywood and stuff would be like, well, we got to make sure we don't ruffle any feathers here.
Jesse Ventura, Hogan, sure. I don't think Slaughter had that at the time. Yeah, I could be wrong.
None of them had G.I. Joe toys.
That's true. Did he only have one though, right?
No, he had several. As a matter of fact, there was a toy line called Slaughter's Marauders that
I
were
remember those guys.
Yeah. So not
They
only
were in
did you
they
have,
were in the movie, right? They were in the movie.
well, no, those are the Renegades. So if you want to talk about Sergeant Slaughter's history with G.I. Joe, first and foremost, he was a mail away figure. You could only get him as a mail away at first. And I think it said he wore the black tank top that said USA on the chest.
Yeah, yeah.
Coincidentally, also the only figure that you had to mail away for the LJN action figures.
That I knew. The
Okay.
big rubber guys.
Super valuable. Yeah. Then you had the tank, his tank with the actual Sergeant Slaughter toy, no USA on the chest.
Got it.
Then you got Slaughter's Marauders, which came out at the same time as Tiger Force for G.I. Joe. So you had Tiger Stripes guys, and then you had a blue, brown, and green Sergeant Slaughter themed group. And then I think Cobra had the Python Patrol. So there you go.
Was Refrigerator Perry a mail-in? I could have swore
He was a mail-in. So G.I. Joe mail-ins, you had the Refrigerator Perry, who had a football on a chain.
Yeah.
That you could beat people with. And they were nice to him as far as his body sculpt was concerned. They made him look very lean, very powerful. And then they had a couple others. There was this one guy called, oh, you know what? I was thinking the Slaughter's Marauders. They also had the Destro's Iron Grenadiers. So that was the other side of it. There was a create your own character that you could get in the mail. You could like sign up all his stuff and you'd get him in the mail. And that one's worth a fortune as well.
Wow.
Those
I did not know that.
Boys.
I remember mailing away for the Fridge. I don't remember mailing away for Slaughter.
Were you a G.I. Joe collector as a kid?
I was, yeah, I was.
I think Slaughter was a little before us as far as like age of getting that.
And now in the world of everything is being remade and remastered and re-released, i.e. the G.I. Joe classifieds, I'm trying to have a set of rules where I just collect Cobra guys. There's a couple of Joes that I've picked up. I think Snake Eyes and Barbecue. And I just purchased Chuckles.
Barbecue from Boston.
Yeah, it's a great barbecue.
Hey there, my name's
voice.
Barbecue. You're like, what accent is that?
But I got Chuckles at Comic-Con, which was great.
Ooh, was that an exclusive?
It was an exclusive, yeah. But I try to just collect mainly Cobra guys. So I'm waiting for like Nemesis Enforcer and
Globulus.
The
Burgess Meredith action figure to go next to your Penguin, right?
Next to my Orson Welles Unicron. No, I'm just kidding. I never got that. But
yeah, they got some pretty big actors to be in these giant toy commercials, huh?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite G.I. Joe villain? Do you have like a favorite design of a character?
Because I do. But I feel like it's just such a typical. I love Cobra Commander just as much as I love. Well, I love the cartoon version. So like the faceplate, not the hood.
Not hooded Cobra Commander, not silver armor Cobra Commander, or like red plate at the late run.
Yeah. I didn't like the red plate. I didn't like was it Cosmic Cobra Commander? We had like a weird helmet. You know,
there was one that was all silver. He was in like a silver body armor thing with like tubes going into it.
Yeah. Didn't like that one. I just liked plain old like white mask or silver mask with the blue helmet. Like, and I just loved him obviously in the cartoon because you're the head of this terrorist organization and you just can't get it right no matter what you do. You just can't.
He's a whiner and you get so angry. I actually really loved that about him. And when they created the Serpentor character to be sort of the like over Cobra Commander's thing, and he becomes like the star scream of G.I. Joe, I found very interesting. My favorite design is Night Viper.
Okay.
And Alley Viper. I like the way they design those.
Now, is Night Viper the black one with the yellow trim?
Night Viper is black and green.
Okay.
Or
what am I thinking of?
Black and yellow? Is that Bat?
I thinking Bat.
You're thinking of Bat. Battle Android Troopers. This could just be a G.I. Joe podcast this whole time.
Might as well be.
I mean, look, I'm not saying that we couldn't do that. Funny story, the classified art, some of those boxes is done by some of my very, very coolest friends.
Well, I'll have to listen to their portion of this podcast because I am a big fan of that art. It's just I love the re-releases, obviously, because they're bigger and they're a little bit more articulated. But man, there was something about those little 3-inch guys that were just so that you could just bring like 20 of them anywhere and they still wouldn't take up a bunch of space. Where your mom would be like, "You're not bringing all those toys." Like you could just set them up and have action adventures anywhere, whether it's the backyard, the beach, the pool, whatever. It
is crazy how Star Wars changed the scope of toys.
Yeah.
Funny stuff. I lost so many GI Joes like in the woods. I lost Sci-Fi in the woods. He was highlighter green, and I somehow lost that son of a bitch in the woods.
I lost more to the band breaking, like
Oh,
the
really?
abdomen, yeah, torso,
Yep.
because I would just play with them so hard. They would
Yeah,
just
that's fair.
snap.
So now you clearly are a collector. You collect
Yes.
stuff. Well, what kind of stuff do you collect? I know you
Oof.
collect stuff from our old job, right? You have a lot of
Yeah.
sideshow stuff, right?
Yep. I have a lot of sideshow stuff. Lots of, I was never into six scales, but because of that job, I have a bunch now, which are, depending on how you look at it, I think they're great. They're really cool.
No, some of them are
Um,
really great.
yeah, I collect anything from Ninja Turtles to, obviously, I think my big one is Masters of the Universe.
Yeah,
I,
okay.
I collect I collect Marvel Legends, I collect GI Joe classifieds.
Oh, so you do have a problem.
Yes, I do have a problem. I was explaining this to Jen and my girlfriend Jen, and I think somebody else on another podcast who his podcast is called cheap plug for them, running out of space. And that's exactly what my house was, and now my garage now currently is running out of space. It's,
You-
I see stuff and I'm like, man, I didn't have that as a child, or I had that as a child, but it was not as cool as this version of it, so now I gotta have it.
And like, is there stuff that you're like, all right, I think I got to get out of here. I got to get this
Well,
gone.
Master of the Universe for sure. I have to find an end game because I'm collecting everything. And there was a time where I didn't have everything, and I feel like I'm such a completionist. I'm like, well, I've come this far, I got to keep it going. But it's just become a little ridiculous.
Yep.
Whereas other brands and other licensees, I have somewhat rules. Like for
What are some of
example,
the rules?
with GI Joe Classified, I for the most part collect mainly Cobras.
Mostly,
Like,
except for when you buy non-Cobras.
well, I mean, again, I for every 15 Cobras, I think I bought one Duke, or sorry, one Duke, one Joe. So I have, like I said, I think Snake Eyes, Barbecue, and Chuckles are the only three Joes that I have. But I have Cobra Commander, the new version, the old version. I have the Destro, and then I have the gold-headed Destro where he's burning money. I have Baroness, I have Dr. Mindbender, I have Major Blood, I have Firefly, I have
You
the
do got
Bats, I have
you
the,
do got a lot of them, huh?
yeah, so I do have a lot of them.
Do you take them out of the packages or do you leave them in the packaging?
Yeah, some of them I do. Again, I just don't have an actual like where I want to put them yet, or cases I want to put them in, but I would love to take them all out.
Yeah.
Let them breathe, as my friend would say.
You like the breathing aspect of it.
Yeah, because you buy them just to keep them in the box. That just seems silly.
Well, I mean, they're art in the same way that you're probably not playing with the toys. You're not bashing them into each other.
I mean, you're right. I'm not.
So
But
like
maybe one day, no one's around. Maybe you're like, you know what? Maybe I want to have an action adventure.
like
Maybe I want to recreate. Maybe I want to recreate WrestleMania 9 and have a different outcome. Maybe Yokozuna goes over on Hogan.
it doesn't bother me the fact that they made him wrestle twice. That poor man.
Hogan?
No, Yokozuna.
Oh, at WrestleMania
Must
10.
have been
No, I'm
so
sorry.
tight. His heart must have been just being like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah, but no, I collect those Marvel Legends. I started off with just villains,
So
and then
you like the villains, the heels, the
yes, love the heels. I started off as villains, and then I think during the pandemic, I was and all when all the MCU came out, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get these because these all look cool. And then I was like, why am I collecting MCU? No offense to the MCU, but I stopped doing that, and so now I just collect mostly the comic versions of them. And again, just like the Joes, most of them are humans. Most of them are villains. For
yeah.
every 15 villain is one hero. So for every is one Iron Man.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite villain?
Of all time,
You a Doom guy?
I love Doom. I love Doom, just the aesthetics and the look and his backstory, and he's always been my favorite. I'm a big Thanos guy as well. But
Question: were you a big Thanos guy before the MCU?
yes,
Right.
I remember my dad, who I kind of blame for all of this stuff, but not totally blame. He was a big bookstore guy, so he would take me to the bookstore very, very young. And back in the day, the comics were on this rack that spun, and just those pictures of these comics just on this rack, just always, it's just embedded in my brain of like, I need these books. And so I would just start collecting them. And I remember right after Batman 89 came out.
Mhm.
I was trying to read everything. And I remember picking up this book, and like I forget which one it was. I don't know if it was Silver Surfer or if it was actually the Infinity Gauntlet. I think it was Silver Surfer, but like the first page is like Hulk's head is through like a wall, and Wolverine is dead, and the Cap shield's broken. Like all these heroes are laid out, and I'm like, what is this? Like
Yeah,
what has happened?
what is even happening here?
Yeah, and like I'm like I didn't know that my heroes could end up like this, and so I ended up going back and reading that run of Silver Surfer and then into Infinity Gauntlet. So before the MCU introduced Thanos, I was a huge Thanos guy.
A funny story, one of my very good friends that I just saw at Comic-Con last weekend, Ron Lim, was one of the artists of that.
Oh, nice.
Nicest friggin' guy. Just such
Yeah.
a good, like laughs all the time, just can't stop laughing. Funny guy, cool guy, nice guy. And I actually had him sign a couple of Marvel Series 2 cards that he drew.
Oh, yeah, and that was the other thing too, is those cards as a kid, Marvel Series 1 and 2. I have both of them full sets, including holograms, in my possession. As a kid, I always collected the Marvel Secret Wars Mattel figures. I think they were like,
oh yeah, those are great.
And I remember Doom and Spider-Man were like my first two figures. And so I was aware of Marvel, and I knew what they were and the comics that were, but I was obsessed with them. And then after seeing that comic of Silver Surfer, I think it was Silver Surfer, I started collecting like the Toy Biz toys and collecting the cards and collecting more comics and reading everything that I could get my hands on.
Yeah. It's crazy that Marvel was such a powerful merchandising empire, and yet they went bankrupt because the comics industry fell apart because they were overproducing. It's such a weird, I mean, it's such a common thing. It's like a stock market crash, but at the same time, you're just sitting there like, what? Like, how did you have these characters and you went bankrupt?
Yeah,
Like,
and just selling all those properties off to whoever would want to pay, $100 million, or not even 5 million for this, or
if
3
that.
million for that. Yeah.
I mean, we're talking mostly 6-figure options. Like,
yeah.
Spider-Man wasn't optioned. I think Canon optioned Spider-Man for under $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, that is insane to me. So obviously you're a big collector, you're a big nerd. That's how we met, was that we were nerds, but we also found kinship in each other, that we were not, I guess, what you would consider the prototypical nerd. And we also experienced a lot of bullying in the comments because of that.
Yeah.
Where we looked like, how do I put it? We look like ass. We are not ass, but
Well, depend on who you ask, but I mean, far from it. Like if you ask my clients, if I put them through a shitty workout, they'll call me an ass. But am I an ass as a person? I would like to think I'm not.
I don't think you are. I don't think you are. And we're actually going to talk about that. But before that, I'm actually going to say thank you to a couple of Patreon producers. So I have about 19 people that go to my Patreon, and they pay me a little bit of extra money to support the show. And then in doing so, I will thank them by saying whatever they want me to say. So shout out to Dan Hackroyd. Shout out to MindFreak555, says Crayfish number 5 is dead. Long live Crayfish 6.
Sure. R.I.P. baby.
Is this a food thing or a pet thing or a different thing? A car thing? A kid thing? I hope that's not the case. Do you ever eat crayfish?
No.
They're fine. Shout out to Eat and Die, The Goonies. Do you ever see the movie?
Wow. I love The Goonies. I got the key on my arm.
Oh, I know. It is one of my least favorite movies of all time.
Okay. You're entitled to that opinion, my friend.
I am entitled to that.
I don't hate you for it.
Oh, thank you.
We're still friends.
Oh.
But if you like Hogan, I'm just kidding.
I bought a Hogan tank top at Survivor Series.
Everybody loved Hogan.
And I wore it the night of my last fight in 2011, and I tore it off.
Wow. That was a mistake.
Huge mistake financially.
Yeah.
If I'm being 100% honest, because that thing is worth a lot of money now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I want to be like, hey, buy this racist shirt. I don't know. He said the N-word. That's the thing he said. Shout out to check out this month's Nerd with Dre and Jeff. We are covering Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, as we finish off our series or season, on bat sequels to popular movies. You a Ninja Turtles 2 fan?
Loved Ninja Turtles 2. I haven't seen it recently. I mean, look, at the same time, we can go back and forth with this, but as a 11-year-old, maybe when that movie came out, 12, 13, it
The
was a great
91.
movie. Yeah, I'm sure if I watch it now, I'm like, huh. But no, I liked one better than two.
I think people have a lot of rose-colored glasses about how good Ninja Turtles 2 is. They're like, Secret of the Ooze is so good. And I'm like, go watch it. Go watch it now.
I just never understood why didn't they, I was like, why isn't it not Bebop and Rocksteady? Who are these two guys?
It's a whole thing, dude.
Yeah, I like Super Shredder. Don't get me wrong. Big Kevin Nash,
Kevin
Super
Nash.
Shredder guy. Yeah,
They pop for Kevin Nash.
Yeah,
From that, Kevin Nash, of course, most famously known for
Diesel,
a quarantine video that he did. Oh, never mind. Did you see that movie? He was in a movie, like a quarantine movie.
No,
It is wild. It's very funny. Shout out to watch me use these prehensile nipples to pick up pennies off the floor. Okay. Shout out to Norm from Cheers. Norm from Cheers, big wrestling guy. He'll appreciate all the stuff you're talking about. He's like a big wrestling guy. Big
Norm.
Shout out to Dan Adamski, world's humblest man. Shout out to Bart Fardigan, Justin Wood, the scene in Meet Joe Black. Did I say Plaque?
You said.
Shout out to that scene in Meet Joe Black where Brad Pitt dies. Shout out to the Tubi Terror Bunny thinks you should watch more Rutger Hauer films. Shout out to Mr. Billy Beck. Hi, your friendly neighborhood mortician here. Psst. You can order caskets online for way less money, and funeral homes have to accept them. Also, direct cremation is the cheapest option if you don't need anything extra. The most useful thing about my podcast is your friendly neighborhood mortician. She lays down the best advice for people that they would never think of.
Are people buying caskets on Amazon? I'm assuming there's got to be an Amazon Kirkland brand casket, right?
I would think so. Buy one of those Kiss caskets if you want to be in a bad band, Shout out to Aldo Vargas is a couple months behind on his podcasts, but he'll hear this eventually. Shout out to Aldo Vargas. I ran into him at San Diego Comic-Con when I was in the Topps booth. And he was like, Jeff May? And I was like, yes, I'm supposed to be giving you a hat because I said the first person to recognize me gets a hat. And then I had to go back to my hotel room the next and get him one the next day. And he met up with me. Nice guy. Really nice. Sometimes it pays to go to Comic-Con.
See?
You get free hats. Do you have one of my hats? You wouldn't wear it. You don't like me.
No, I don't have one of your hats. I was never bestowed one.
Ooh. You want one?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll get you a hat. Would you wear it though?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Shout out to I haven't had carbs or sugar in a couple weeks. I fantasize about deli sandwiches now. Is that a good idea to cut out something like carbs and sugar for an entirely long thing? You're a fitness professional.
Carbs, no, depending on the carbs. The sugar, sure. Carbs, you need fuel to perform, whether you're working out or trying to get through your day. Good carbs, some
wild rice,
some sweet potatoes, some broccoli.
You need fuel. You need fire. And turns out you need that which I desire.
Bananas.
Ooh. Yeah. Metallica songs.
Yeah. So good carbs are good for you. If you're eating processed carbohydrates, those are probably bad for you.
Like
so
deli sandwiches.
Deli sandwiches are processed meat. And
do you eat those ever though?
Deli sandwiches? Of course.
How clean do you eat?
Recently, not very clean.
Because you're buff as hell.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I do. I'm actually going to talk. Well, we'll talk about some more producers, and then we'll talk about that because that is something that I very much want to talk to you about. Because boy, over 40, is it harder to add muscle and bulk?
Clearly, I'm getting to that point now.
It is a real problem. Shout out to the producer formerly known as the Ghost of Dave Thomas. Shout out to who wins in the What If crossover we truly deserve. Doo-doo suit Bruce Wayne or doo-doo suit Logan? Ugly brown Batman the Animated Series suit Bruce Wayne or ugly brown X-Men suit Logan?
Probably These are Logan. Great. These are great.
Shout out to Eat and Die Grand Canyon. You ever been to the Grand Canyon?
Sure have.
How was it?
It's beautiful. It's the Grand Canyon.
Does it look like the photos?
Better.
Why? So like a video.
It's almost like you got to be there. It's like very breathtaking. You're like, wow, this is dinosaurs used to live here. I don't know. It's just it's something you don't see every day. I mean, maybe it's because
you can be there. I'm just not interested. I don't give a shit about the Grand Canyon.
I'm not saying you have to make a vacation out of it. I'm saying if you are driving through Arizona and you're not that far from the Grand Canyon, do yourself a favor and check it out. That's
if I am driving through Flagstaff and decide
Yeah.
to make an hour detour and hit the Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
I promise I will go there and I will take a photo of me being the most miserable person on the planet.
Or if you're in an airplane and the pilot's like, all right, everybody, the Grand Canyon's on the left-hand side. Just look. That's all you gotta
I'm
do.
good.
It's pretty. You're just
I'd
gonna
love
be
to, you know, what's funny is I always sit in an aisle seat. So I would love to be like, let me see. And then like jump over the two people to look.
you should totally do that.
And where do you sit on airplanes?
Depends on the flight. If it's a
Yeah.
long flight, I know that I'm gonna sleep, I'll probably sit next to the window.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'm an aisle guy because they got these big burly shoulders.
Yeah, right. I do have, I'm wide.
But then I get hit by the cart all the time, and I'm just like, there's no winning here.
I'm wide and long.
Oof.
Being tall is a nightmare when you're traveling, man. And poof. Oh, sorry about that. You want a Dr. Pepper? Yeah. And of course, shout out to the wandering, unpierced left nipple. If you want to be one of those people that has me read your name on here, head on over to patreon.com/Jeff May. Sign up for the producer tier or the Two-Face tier. The Two-Face tier, you get this and you get the rookie card tier. Shout out to Don West. And that's where I actually mail you a bunch of the stuff that I pull over the breaks. And August is starting. New breaks this month. So new stuff coming in the packages. Coming in the packages.
R.I.P. Don West.
I have an autographed. Somebody sent me a TNA autographed Don West card.
On
And
today's matchup, we got Sting versus Kevin Nash.
they got him because of his baseball card sales.
Yeah.
You know that, right? Did you ever watch those as a kid?
TNA?
No, the Don West baseball card programs on like.
I know what you're talking about. Like I've seen them, but I'm like,
I think they did a Saturday Night Live about him. It was like when Star Wars was coming back and they were like, we got Mark Hamill. We got the actual Mark Hamill here. I was obsessed with that as a kid. And so
that was more Harry Carey than Don West. I'm not going to try to pick apart your
it was actually my impression. And this is why it was, I think Will Ferrell played the character. But no, it wasn't Carey. No, but it was like, you get the Ken Griffey Jr.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
And so it was like that. And so that's why I have you get the blank rookie card. And I send people a bunch of shit that I open. Have you opened a pack of cards lately?
I have actually.
My
friend, I have a client, I won't say who, but he works for a major trading card company. And I got to open up a box of cards. And I was like, holy shit, this is so much fun.
Isn't it great? Well, you know what we should do? We should get a box of WWE cards and we should open it together.
Sure.
We should
I'll do that. I'll do that.
That company has those cards, right?
What company?
The Friend.
I don't think so.
Those cards.
I don't think so.
You could break them in and steal them. But yeah, doing a break of those, it's really fun, man. When you pull like an autograph or something, and you're like, "This is really neat."
Yeah,
I also know these people.
Well, I also have another client who was kind enough he's a trading card aficionado. He was kind enough to grade some of my Marvel cards. And so he was giving me the breakdown on how the grading works and what to look for.
10?
No, I got 2 9s. I have them somewhere. They're in the pile. I think it was a Daredevil and a Green Goblin were 9s, series 1.
Yeah.
And Doom and Thing were 8s.
Yeah.
And then we got jobbed out there. I got one that's a 6, and I'm like, there's no way that this is a 6. It was like in series 1, it was like the battle. It was like Thor versus Hulk. I think that's actually which one it was. And it came back as a 6. I'm like, there's no fucking way this is a 6. I almost want to open it up just so I can resubmit it.
Yeah. I'm learning a lot about the grading aspect of it, and that's really hard. But like, I'm trying hard not to find myself diving too hard into the addiction of trading cards. I'm trying to give away as much of this stuff as I can to people. Like, I'm like, please sign up for this tier. You're getting a hell of a deal. I just got to get these out of my house. I need these for the content. Yeah. I don't need these for my innate need to collect because it's starting to itch a little bit. And I'm starting to be like, yeah, but what if I did collect them?
Yeah. No, that's me. That's me in the completionist. I'm like, all right, I got series 1 and 2. I mean, I never owned series 3, but it'd be nice to have. And I'm like, what am I talking about?
Cosmic background on the series 3. Yeah. The last one that the Image guys did before they left for Image.
Yeah. Oh, series 4. Okay, if I have series 3, I got to get series 4. And then I'm just like this. And then the new ones are out. I think it's Upper Deck.
Yeah.
And there's like a box that's like $400. And I'm like, well, why is it $400? There's got to be some good stuff in there. I guess I better buy it.
You know why?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question for you then, because let's say because you know that I post the videos, that I did the thing videos. I think that I
And I
have,
gotta say, God bless you, because I feel like I'm a pretty confident individual, but I feel like most people have some sort of small. I just feel like I look silly. Maybe there's a little bit of imposter syndrome. Maybe there's a little bit of dysmorphia. But I'm like, man, I wish I could post my workout videos to me, because you post them and they're very, very encouraging, and I applaud you for them. I'm not saying that I couldn't be encouraging. I just think that I also come from a community where I feel like if I'm not doing something perfectly. Like if I'm doing a hang power clean, for example, which is an
yeah.
Olympic lift, if I don't do it correctly, I'm just going to get ripped apart. And I don't want to not have those conversations. I just want to just post fun video of me working out, whereas your form is impeccable. I'm putting you over, and you're extremely motivating. Where I think one day I'm like, this motherfucker is running outside and it's 100 degrees in the valley and it's 80 degrees here, and I don't want to run, but I'm gonna go run because this jerk off
Okay, that's why I
went
do
and
it.
ran.
And
Yeah.
it's important for you to know that I am embarrassed whenever I post these. I find them embarrassing, but I know they're not. They're embarrassing to me to do it. I'm not in the best shape I've ever been, right? But I think it's important to remind people, especially my listeners, my fans, my people in my life, my friends, to be like, "Hey, look, man, part of living is maintaining your body and your health. I think it's important."
Mhm.
And so I say, "Look, I didn't want to, people think I like running. I hate it. Hate it. I hate running. I love being done with a run. Finishing a run feels so good, but doing a run feels, I hate it. But whenever I'm done and I got that, and I'm like, okay, now I'm not going to feel bad. And again, I don't feel like food should be a reward, blah, blah, blah. But I also don't get in my head. I've carried a lot of in my brain about food and my relationship with it, with compulsive overeating. So I post these videos. I'm not as jacked as I used to be. I'm a bit more leaner. I'm having a harder time getting rid of the spare tire. I ate toast today, stuff like that, where it's like little things where you're like, you shouldn't feel bad about eating toast. And I'm like, yeah, but I got this little spare tires coming over my lip of my jeans here. So I want to know, like, what is a day for you like? Because you're very strong, you're very muscular, you're very, you don't have much fat on you. Like, what's your
I,
day like?
I will agree to disagree on that.
we
No,
we all say that, and so I understand why you would say that.
no, my day typically depends on the amount of clients that I usually have. But I think on an average day, I wake up. I used to wake up so early when I used to coach CrossFit classes at a gym. So I spend a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean just an extra hour. So I have a client at 6 o'clock normally, Monday through Friday. So I get up at 5:30. The gym that I train
AM.
them at, yeah, AM, is pretty close. So I will train them there, and then we'll start a long session of clients after that. So I usually have clients midday. I try to work out in the morning if I can, if I have a break in between the clients, but I basically have about 4 to 5 clients a day. And then in between there, I will work out. And then also I program for my for Dead Boys
Dead boys,
Fitness.
yeah.
And so yeah, and then on top of that, there's the administrative stuff that goes along with the Dead Boys Fitness programming, which is incorporating the workouts into the website and adding videos and this, that, and the other. So I would say my day starts at 5:30 and depending on usually ends around 8
So, but
p.m. if
it's
I'm
pretty much
lucky.
all exercise themed.
More or less, right? I have a lot of fun clients, whether they are CEOs or musicians or actors or professional wrestlers. So I do drive a lot, which is not ideal, but I really do truly love all of my clients. And so if I was going out of my way to go see a client that I did not like, I probably would not have them. The
Yeah.
money is great, but my time is very valuable, and also, the money is not that important to me if I have a client who's not very serious and or makes my life more hell trying to get to them than it is for me trying to help them. Because as much as I enjoy training Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch and musicians and and actors, the everyday average person I get more satisfaction from, because they're the ones that are making these big gigantic leaps
Yeah.
in their health and wellness,
Yeah.
whether
And
it
it's not
is
their job to be in shape. the way they
Exactly.
rest
So
for
I
you.
I trained this lady who lost 60 pounds, and that made me feel really, really good. I have this young kid who, would be categorized as a nerd when I
Is that the
first
kid you
started.
brought into Sideshow?
Yeah, when I first started
Yeah.
training him, he didn't have a lot of friends, and well, I would say that he didn't have a lot of friends. Maybe that's not right, but he definitely wasn't outgoing. And now I feel like he's out of his shell, and he's,
Oh, what's that
now
kid look like now? I want to know what he looks like
he's
after
very
you guys are
tall.
done.
That's the reason why I'm leaving, at 3 here, because I
Yeah.
have to go train him. But he is very, very tall and is killing it in life. And so like these types of stories
So he
where,
has a personal trainer?
yeah.
What is he like, Richie Rich?
How did you know? No,
Wow, you're
he's just
training Richie Rich.
yeah. And again, remember, I just said like it's the relationships. I've known this kid forever. There's some people that I've known forever. It's not necessarily what they do that entices me. It's the challenge of trying to make them a better version of themselves. And
Yeah.
that is what I like and enjoy the most.
Well,
So
I
even though,
guess
yes, it's cool to say Seth freaking Rollins is your client, yeah, but also, Ollie and Michelle and all these other people that I train, they're just as cool, if not
well,
cooler,
when I
depending
went
on.
in for that workout, I made friends with a couple of the guys because we were so similar with like Andrew
Yeah.
and Rob, and they were really, really nice guys and connections too, which was not like the weird part about it is you're like, that's cool. And then like later on down the line, something comes up and it's like, hey, oh my God, you like I know you kind
Yeah,
of a
and it's
thing. And
always
that's
fun to
really
me. Like I'm a big connector. I've done that throughout my entire life. If
that with
someone's like,
Goldberg and The Rock.
yeah, if I'm going to, I'm from Las Vegas and someone's like, oh, I'm going to Vegas, I'll hear it and I'll be like, oh, check out this restaurant. Call my buddy. He'll get you in here, get you in there. I
I'm
love,
going to Vegas on
oh,
Thursday.
I don't know anybody, buddy. Sorry.
Ah,
I'm just
ah.
kidding. But no, I always love doing that. I love
Yeah.
connecting people, helping people get jobs, helping people, if they're
I'm
stuck in a rut.
I'm with you on that, like a lot. I very much try to connect people and be like, I think this would work well.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
So, but yeah, that is a typical day for the most part. I try to eat clean for the majority of the week. Like I said, this last couple of months have been a little, not, I wouldn't say rough. I just have been like, I'm not going to track it, but I usually track my weight. I usually weigh my food. I try to eat
Weigh
as
your
clean as
food.
possible. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. So that is something where you're like, I am intense about this when I am focused.
I wouldn't say that yes, I am intense when I'm focused, but I'm also like, I do it just so I'm a big snacker, right? I think this was growing up with my watching TV with like my grandmother. She just like would eat, like watch a movie with a bowl of popcorn, but I love snacks. And so, when my day is done and I'm finished programming and I'm watching whatever with Jen, I'll want like a small bowl of goldfish, but then I'm still hungry. So then I'll have goldfish and some blueberries. And then I'm like, oh, but I also want this. And so like, there's no like
You're
balance.
also probably burning a lot of calories over the day that your body's like, you need to
Yeah.
put some more calories in here.
So I try my best to count my macronutrients, which are protein, carbs, and fats. And when I'm in a cutting or losing weight phase, I try to keep the fat content low, keep the carbs moderate, and keep the protein levels high. If I'm in like a maintenance phase, you would keep the balance between carbs and fats a little bit higher, but you keep the protein the same.
Okay, because I always wonder about that because like for example, like I don't normally this is awful and it's not something I prefer, but I don't normally eat anything until about 1 to 1:15, primarily because I get sick if I work out with food in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And my class is at noon. So I work out fasted, boxing,
Mm-hmm.
or I run fasted, which is fine. I don't think fasted cardio is a thing, but it's certainly not going to help me bulk up but yeah, I'm not doing exercises that are designed to bulk me up. I have a protein shake. It's Orgain pea protein, a scoop of natural peanut butter, water, and frozen berries. Should I be doing anything else with that?
I'm always a firm believer of eating whole foods
Mhm.
after your workout if you can. So if you're in a pinch, protein shake is perfect. But in
So,
reality, if you have the time to eat some good carbs, rice, sweet potatoes,
so I should eat a
banana.
whole instead of because like other than the powder, it was all whole foods that I just blended together, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like I think it'll fill you up more because I find when I drink a shake, I'm like, okay, well, I'm still hungry. This didn't do anything.
It's a lot of peanut butter.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
I like the fat of the peanut butter. It fills me up a lot.
Yeah, no, you can still have the shake
Yeah.
and eat something after that. I mean, I do that too. It just all depends on what your goals are. If you're trying to
Yeah.
bulk up,
I
that's
need
a
to
different.
change it because I noticed you know, when my arms look huge is when I'm sweating at boxing and I catch myself in the mirror. But if I see myself in the mirror anytime that I'm not working out, I feel like I look really string beanie.
It all depends on the mirror and the lighting. Sometimes I'll be in a Target and I'll check myself out in the checkout. I'm like, oh, I look pretty sick. And then I'll go to another mirror and I'm like, oh, I look like,
I went, I got super lean during the pandemic. You remember? I was down
uh-huh.
to like 191 was my lowest. And a lot of people were like, you look kind of sick. Which didn't make me feel great because I'd been working really hard, but also I was
Yeah.
like, maybe I should take some of that information into consideration. And so kind of pulled back a little bit from like running every single day and broke it down to much less. And then kind of got a little added some weight on again. And I'm back into like getting back and running at least 2 days a week. And this is hard, man. It's hard putting bulk back on. I've been doing more weight stuff or as I call it, the boring stuff.
Yeah, it all depends on the goals, and it also depends on what you have the time to do. And that's what's so great about the Dead Boys fitness workouts. Not all, but most of them, is that you can do a pretty great workout with anywhere between 12 to 20 minutes, depending on the
Time.
time that you have.
I
The running
really
is
enjoyed you do that day with the Dead Boys thing? Where
love
like when
doing
you
that.
guys
Yeah.
go to a place?
We haven't done it since WrestleMania. We would have done it this weekend at SummerSlam in Detroit, of all places, but I will be hosting the CrossFit Games, and so I will not be able to put one on this weekend.
What
But
a coincidence. You brought up
yeah,
that you're hosting the CrossFit Games.
so the CrossFit Games will be happening this weekend in Madison, Wisconsin, and the SummerSlam is in Detroit, so I will not be able to make it.
But they're so close.
They are close. I don't know if I can make it there back in time.
When's the CrossFit Games over? Because SummerSlam, that's a Sunday, right?
It's a Saturday. All the pay-per-views now are on Saturday, my friend.
I've aged myself out of information, I guess.
There you go. See, no, CrossFit Games are over on Sunday. They start technically tomorrow, but my portion doesn't start until Thursday. So I'm there from Thursday to Sunday.
Oh, so what does it entail hosting these games?
I would consider myself maybe like a mix between like a Mean Gene, Bobby the Brain, and like an Al Michaels, but I'm on the field. When I'm on the field, I'm basically broadcasting what the spectators in the arena are seeing, if that makes sense. I'm
So you're just
commentating.
announcing so it's like you're like Jim Rossing it out.
Correct. And if you're in the audience and you're lucky enough to be there, I will throw some fun references that only people that either know me or are fans of pop culture or wrestling or Marvel or comics or whatever the case may be, I will throw in some great references as best I can.
What is the spectator situation like at the CrossFit Games?
The fittest
That's what
spectators,
I'm really wondering about that. Like,
they are
are
the
there fans of the CrossFit concept, or
oh, it
mostly other
is
people that do it?
like I'm going into this not feeling great about how I look, and I feel like I look pretty decent, but like every year I'm like, oh, I got to get fitter if I'm going to come back here next year because these fans are just so ripped and
Wear a parka.
Yeah.
One
In
of my
in in Midwest monsoon heat, you're right. I
yes,
should probably do that.
one of my good friends, she got really into CrossFit, and she is without legs. She's a Blade Runner.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, and she like the workouts that she posts. I went to high school with her, and it was like meningitis in college, and she lost her legs. And she came out, and instead of being all frumpy about it, she just was like, I'm gonna be she became like a biologist. She became like she's a doctor, and she's also like a CrossFit freak. Like she goes crazy about it. And I'm
That's
just
great.
like, and it's so hard because I don't believe in inspiration porn, but I always just want to be like, I wish I could tell more people about how amazing you are.
Yeah, no, it's a fun time, and I have a good time doing it. Obviously, this is my 11th year doing it, so they
For
clearly
11
like that.
years.
Yeah, they clearly like that I do it. So every year I'm like, I don't know if I'll be back next year. Not because I don't want to do it, just because I'm always afraid that like they're gonna replace me with somebody.
They're gonna
So
figure you out. Yeah.
yeah, so it's
Hey
fun. I have
man,
a good time.
if you've been doing it for over a decade, something tells me that you're an important part of this program.
Oh,
So
well, I appreciate it. Thank
I'm
you.
very happy for you. I'm very proud of you. I'm very happy to see you. And one of the things, I got to see you this weekend. Speaking of connections, I'm going to make sure I get that football to you so you can send that to your future mother-in-law.
You got it.
Now, for the rest of you, I know you should definitely check out Dead Boys Fitness if you are looking to get into something that is not going to destroy you. If you are looking to fix your life, change it. I have worked out with the Dead Boys. I have watched their videos. I have been there. I have participated. I've never felt more comfortable and safe in a situation, in a scenario that I should hate, and I didn't. So definitely check out Dead Boys Fitness. If you're local and not a huge asshole, you can hire Josh to be your one-on-one trainer.
Yeah, let's go.
But in general, if you're going to be at the CrossFit Games, check out Josh. Josh, where can we find you on the social medias?
At Joshy Gallegos, JoshYGallegos on Instagram and Threads. Huh? See what I did there? And I think I'm at Joshy G on Blue Sky, thanks to a certain someone. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really do anything on there. I just look.
Wait for it to die.
Yeah. But other than that, that's it really. And then Dead Boys Fitness on Instagram and Threads.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And for those of you that are listening for free, thank you so much. If you're listening for the Patreon, through the Patreon, obviously stick around. We've got Patreon exclusive content coming your way. If you are listening for free and you want to get that content, head on over to patreon.com/JeffMay, JEFFMAY, one word, for all sorts of exclusives, access to stuff in the mail. You can get a producer credit. You can do all this crap. Patreon.com/JeffMay. If you want to hear me on Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, go ahead and do that. That is on the Gamefully Unemployed Network, and as well as everything I do on the You Don't Even Like This Show network, which is You Don't Even Like This Show, You Don't Even Like Sports, and You Don't Even Like Sports Cards, where I open sports cards with Adam Todd Brown. I also open non-sports cards on I Must Break You on my YouTube at Hey There Jeffro, and also at Hey There Jeffro on Instagram. Sometimes I do them on Instagram Live for fun. If you're a freebie, thank you so much. We will see you in 2 weeks. If you are a patron, stick around. We'll be right there. Josh, say goodbye to the freeloaders.
See you later, freeloaders.
All
Just
right.
kidding. You guys are great.
We
Thank
love you too. Thank you so much. Review me. Damn it, review me. Also, check out Mint on Card, second Friday of every month. Blast from the Past, Magnolia, Burbank, California. Bye. Hey everyone, our artwork is created by Justin T. Brown, who can be found at Artness by Justin Brown on Instagram, as well as artnessbyjustinbrown.com. That dope music you heard is by Troy Nababon, available at Troy Nababon on Instagram, as well as at troynababon.com. Nababon is spelled Nababan, and boy, does that shred. Thank you all so much for listening. See you next time.